A report surfaced about a potential extension for Alek Manoah, but apparently the two sides were not even close. That's a little worrisome coming from the Blue Jays side of things. And we also found out some news about Ross Stripling and why he chose the Giants over Toronto. And we'll also be breaking down the losses in split squad action against the Phillies on this episode of Jays Digest. What's up, Jays fans? I'm your host, Peter Vryonis, alongside host Nick Gosse. Now, got a pretty loaded video for you guys today. It's been a while since we've done one of these fully focused news videos, but there has been some interesting little tidbits that have dropped in Jays land for us to react to. And it's the slow part of spring training, so I thought that we should probably get you guys this news and not talk too much about the 2 L's today in spring training.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate game in today's spring training. We also, like you said, have some crazy news that is definitely going to spark up some controversy between us and in the comments section. And make sure to hit the subscribe button if you enjoy the daily content. But let's just get into the first piece of news, which is the Manoah contract talks have been leaked. They've been revealed by Jon Heyman, who is a reliable writer. He obviously sometimes says some things that are questionable, but he is a reliable writer. And what will pop up right here is a part from the article saying the Jays in nearby Dunedin can really hit, and their outfield, which formerly had one part-time center fielder, now has three who can do it. Their base running is also much improved, a consideration with those pizza box bases. And this is the key part here. He said the Jays made a contract suggestion for Alek Manoah this winter. Word is they were not close. Now it broke Twitter a little bit. Tons of people were talking about it. Reddit was talking about it. I'll get your thoughts on it now, Peter. It's a bit concerning, and it wasn't headlined in the article, so a lot of people haven't been able to see this. It was within a whole kind of like news piece done by Jon Heyman, but interesting. It could be nothing. It could be something that's very concerning. What are your thoughts?
Jon Heyman always jumps the gun. Okay, he's the guy. He's the first guy to do that, and it happened with the Aaron Judge news going to the Giants. There were a lot of miscues by Jon Heyman throughout the offseason. I'm not saying it to be funny. It's the truth. Like he's lost a little bit of credibility among guys like Jeff Passan and John Morosi and those other guys. So I mean, you got to take it with a grain of salt, but I do believe that the Jays have probably tried, because why would you not want to try to lock up your ace? Your 25-year-old pitcher who what you're getting out of him each and every start. It would just make sense. But I mean, Alek Manoah, he's probably betting on himself as he should. And if he thought it was a low ball offer, then there's no reason for him to sign it, because he's been great the minute he stepped on that mound.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm hoping that this was more of a case of Manoah not necessarily just saying, no, we're not close. More maybe hopefully there's some back and forth, or maybe, and most likely, we'll revisit this later, maybe at the end of the season. But again, I'll pop it up one more time. Not close, which makes me wonder what the possible, number was, the figure was for the Blue Jays. But I don't know. I think there's no doubt in my mind that Manoah will be a Blue Jay for the foreseeable future, and he has tons of years left on his contract, but I think he'll be a Blue Jay for the future. And I don't know, at the end of the day, like you said, Heyman sometimes does junk the gun, and no one else reported this, so I would believe, definitely he got some sources, and someone probably said this, and it probably is true, but it probably wasn't anything too crazy.
Well, we've seen it, and particularly with the Atlanta Braves. I mean, they have players, they have top prospects come up, and they play a handful of games, 50-plus games, and then they're already signed to 8-plus-year extensions. And that could be good, it could be bad. Sometimes they don't pan out, but most of the time when it's star players like that, they tend to pan out. I mean, Ronald Acuna is making less than $200 million in a world where star outfielders are probably going to make around $350 to $400 million. So that was a bargain on the Atlanta Braves part. Michael Harris, 8 years, $72 million. He's one of the premier outfielders. Who else am I missing? Spencer
Lots of
Strider,
names.
Austin Riley. I mean, Ozzy Albies, 5 years or 7 years, 35 million. It's just absolute steals. It's because they are banking on these players that they developed in their farm system. And, the Blue Jays got to start doing that same thing, because they waited too long with Vladdy. Now they waited too long with Bo Bichette. You cannot make the same mistake with Alek Manoah, and I already think they did. I mean, they've waited too long. He's already one of the premier pitchers in all of baseball, and you're going to have to pay him accordingly. He won't take a low ball offer.
Yeah, and I don't know how much of it is the Jays' fault for the Manoah situation, though, because I'm sure that he hasn't wanted to maybe agree to any extension, but I will agree that for the other guys, they definitely waited a bit long. But let us know in the comments what your thoughts are on that. And I guess we'll stay on the topic of extensions here. And this is very interesting. And the truth behind Ross Stripling not returning, he revealed it himself, which is very rare for a player. But I don't know if it was on an interview or a podcast, whatever it was. But I'll pop up a screenshot here. It was a piece from Shai Davidi, and this is what Ross Stripling had to say. Quote, "I loved it. I would have gone back in a heartbeat." So Shai Davidi caught up with Ross Stripling, who last week became a dad for the second time, and he's settling in nicely with the Giants, who just nudged past the Blue Jays at the end of his free agency to get him. And here is the big piece of juicy news that we all wanted to know. And this is what the quote says. "I love my time in Toronto, and they were in the mix to the very end. Essentially, what it came down to was the Giants offered me an opt-out after the first year, and the Blue Jays wouldn't. That made it a no-brainer, really." So that's the big difference. Obviously, Ross Stripling, if he performs well this year with the Giants, he can opt out and hit free agency again. And the Jays gave the exact same figure number, so the same amount of money, or offered the same amount of money to Ross Stripling, but wanted him for a minimum of 2 years, which is why they ultimately pivoted to Chris Bassett, who we ultimately got again for a longer term in 3 years. And what are your thoughts on that? I would have liked to get both of them. Would you have included an opt-out if it means that we could have had both, or do you think it was more of a case of we chose Chris Bassett's length over Ross Stripling's?
I think they did choose Chris Bassett's length, and there's a reason why, teams were not giving Ross Stripling 5, 6 years, because
Yeah.
that was his
Yeah.
first full dominant season where he was in the rotation steadily, and he showed that he can be a starting pitcher. So it made sense to not offer him a multi-year contract, and it makes sense for him to want an opt-out, because if he shows that he can do what he did last year again in 2023, then he's legitimately going to get paid on the
Yeah,
open market,
exactly.
because he's around 31, and he's 31 years old, I
I
think.
believe so. Yep.
So once he does hit the open market again, he'll be right in the prime of his career. Not too many innings in his arm, and he's just got to show it that he can do it again. And I think he can, and I think he'll get paid on the open market next offseason.
Yeah, and that's what it comes down to. And I think the stance that I stand, and let us know in the comments what yours is as well. If it was between Stripling and Bassett, then I'm happy that we chose Bassett. I think he's more, he is more proven as a starter, and we got more terms. They're pretty very similar though, numbers wise, throughout their careers. But
Yeah.
Ross had a much better year last year. But if we could have gotten both, then I would have liked Rogers to spend the extra, include the opt out and just we would have had a dominant starting five. But at the end of the day, I agree with you. I think it was between them, and I'm not upset with the choice, but we're going to have to revisit this topic in a few months' time once they've both pitched. And I have no doubt, like you, that Ross Stripling is going to have a phenomenal year, and then he's probably going to get paid in the triple figures there. But any final thoughts on that?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if I'm being honest with you, I trust Ross Stripling more in the playoffs than I do Chris Bassett. I mean, Chris Bassett's track record in the playoffs has not been great, and he's showed that he slows down in the second half of the season, and he did so last year with the New York Mets as well. Now, I'm hoping I'm wrong. I'm hoping that he proves to be a stud throughout the whole year, but when it comes to playoff time, I mean, Ross Stripling is battle tested. He was on those great Dodgers teams and played a pivotal role for them as well. So I don't know. It could end up burning the Blue Jays, and it could end up being the right decision, but only time will tell.
Yeah, I was about to say the same thing. Time will tell, and it's definitely an interesting thing to keep an eye on. But let's move in now to the final topic, which is the Jays get crushed. And it was a rough game today. It was a very rough game today. Both games were
Too
rough.
rough.
Yeah, two rough games. 8-1, they get crushed in one of the games. Now, I'll pop up the screenshots. We're just going to highlight the screenshots on one of the games here. And this is the one that was televised. Did anyone impress you today? Bichette was the key for me, and a pitcher who I'll mention in a minute, but nothing too crazy overall. Let me know what your thoughts are on that.
Well, I have a feeling I know who your pitcher is going to be. It's Nate Pearson, I
Correct.
assume. And I'll let you talk about him. But I was impressed. I was impressed with Yusei Kikuchi. Not if you pop up those
Yep.
that stat line over there, you'll see 3 walks, and he started off the game really poorly. It was looking like one of those signature Yusei starts where, man, is he even going to get out of the second inning? And he came back. He bounced back. He gave up those 2 early runs and then started to find the strike zone. And I texted you after the first couple batters. I said, "Uh-oh, here we
Yeah.
go. Like, is this the end of his hot spring?" And he finally gave up some runs. I wasn't expecting him to have a 0 ERA for the entire season, but he bounced back, and that's something that we from last year we would have seen him just fold completely, and he would have been talking to himself, and he just would have gotten in his own head and not been able to get out of it. But he did get out of it, and it still is spring training. I want to see it in the regular season, but good on him. He seems to have figured out the mental.
Yeah, I agree. I was going to say the same thing. Now, my player was indeed Nate Pearson. I'll quickly touch on Kikuchi. Yeah, it was good to see him battle back. Obviously, he gave up 2 runs, but fought through his control issues, and hopefully that doesn't become a pattern because that's back-to-back starts now with him. On the hitting side of things, nothing too crazy today. Bo Bichette's just been unbelievable all spring. He's up now to a 4.12 average, so he's been great. But I'll quickly touch on Nate Pearson, who went 2 innings, gave up 2 hits with no earned runs. So he was very impressive today. Twitter was really gassing him up, and I think with every appearance that he makes in spring training, he's inching himself closer to making that opening day roster. Did you have any thoughts on him before we wrap up?
Yeah, he looked really good. The stuff is just getting better and better. The control is getting better and better. I can't wait to see him pitch this season. I think he's going to play a valuable role. And shout out to Jordan Romano as well for striking out the side, even though it was against the
Phillies, yeah.
replacement players for the Phillies. So that's why, I mean, I was gonna say Romano impressed me, but we also got to remember that he was pitching against the minor leaguers in the Philly system, and that's what he should be doing against players of that caliber. But yeah, Pearson looked good. Um, Bassett looked good in the other game as well. He showed some length. 5 innings, I
5 innings, yeah,
believe.
one hit,
And,
I think.
yeah, 80 pitches. 80 pitches. Yeah, he gave up 1 run, four hits, I believe,
4 hits, 1 run. Yeah.
and 1 home run. But that's okay. He's looked pretty solid after that first rough start that he had. So it's getting there.
It's all coming together and it's exciting. The Jays season is fast approaching, about 2 weeks away, so we're excited for that. A bit less than 2 weeks as of now, but hopefully you've been enjoying the live streams and the videos. Make sure to hit the subscribe button. Thank you for the support, and we'll see you in tomorrow's video.
Thanks.